Well, the good news is I actually was a former TriMet mechanic.
We figured it out. Thank you, Don.
Mr. Chair and members of the board, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak this evening. With TriMet's most recent petition to the Oregon Employment Relations Board, seeking a declaration ruling as to whether the pending unfair labor practice complaint halts the parties' interest arbitration proceedings. It appears that based on the board's ruling that an arbitration's award on the new contract we might not be expected before March of 2012. The three-member Employment Relations Board itself has decided to hear the union's complaint that TriMet submitted new issues in its final offer that were not representatives of its last written proposal on May 18, 2011. The board will issue a ruling by no later than mid-August 2011. Either party will have the right to a court of appeals or file a motion to stay the board's final order. Absent any appeals, it is logical to assume that the interest arbitrator's decision will come no earlier than March of 2012. Now, to complicate things further, let's return to another charge filed by the union against TriMet that alleges TriMet changed the status quo by suspending wages and insurance increases after the contract had expired and practices between the parties since 1994. And the allegations that TriMet retaliated against the union, an admission by TriMet's general manager, Neil McFarland, made when he told the union that he would not have canceled scheduled pay increased pay and insurance increases if the union had not filed an unfair labor practice complaint. Those charges will be heard by the ERB, Administrative Law Judge, on May 16th and 17th, 2011. A decision can take up to 6 months and should either side appeal, a decision and final order by the ERB board may not be expected until spring of 2012. Now, here's the potential problem for TriMet. Obviously, if the Administrative Law Judge's decision and the ERB's final order on the unilateral contract change and the retaliation charges come before the interest arbitration decision, determining TriMet's liability, should TriMet lose, will be relatively easy to determine. TriMet would be on the hook for all premium charges, active and retired employees, and for the deductibles and other expenses incurred by those members who were forced to take lesser plans, which could top several $million or more, depending on when the decision comes down. Now, what happens if the interest arbitrator's decision is handed down before the ERB decision on the unilateral contract change and retaliation issue? And what if the ERB's decision is different than what the interest arbitrator ordered? The potential for appeals and further lawsuits could be very real and go on for a long period of time. The moral of the story is that the longer this dispute continues, it will not only mean the cost and liability to the taxpayers of this district. As the union has said all along, this dispute can be resolved, but not on TriMet's terms that we accept the unlawful implementation. I've come here many months and spoke of my issues. And although I don't think it's been articulated in the press, we have always ended the conversation that we're willing to sit down, we're willing to meet, and we're willing to negotiate an issue. We are going to get a decision sometime in the future. And by the statistics that we're looking at, it is going to be a long time. In the rose-colored glasses, I'm glad you have them, gentlemen. But where is the money being held that's going to cover those potential problems? And why are we not willing to sit down and try to resolve the issues? Why am I about ready to get a deal in Salem? Why was I able to get a collective bargaining agreement in Eugene, Oregon? By the way, both of those fall under the binding arbitration law. Why was I able to, in all of these different areas, able to negotiate a contract? Surely they have no more money than anybody else. It comes down to recognizing that we are better working together than we are apart. Unfortunately, the entire organization has switched hands. Every one of our top officials has been replaced within the last couple of years. Our general counsel now, I believe, is going to be retiring. Congratulations, Brian. However, what we have is the inability to see when we can make an agreement. And that's unfortunate because it's going to be costly. It's not only going to be costly on the taxpayers, but on the burden of all of us that continue to work this. And the tension level on how to get it resolved, because guess what? Nobody likes to lose. I do this every single day, and not everybody likes me, and not everybody loves me. But you know what, at the end of the day, we need to look at alternatives. I would ask one of you to direct our financial officer to how much we have spent on Mercer Corporation. That has went out, have they done due diligence and found bids? I sit with other agencies and talk about how do we get our insurance lower. We accepted a 22% increase and never blinked an eye. I don't believe, and I have not seen, any other competitor come forward and say, hey, what about we look at other alternatives? Or how about some co-insurance? Or how about self-insured? Although Neil and I have talked through it in mediation, it's never produced anything. So we are not rolling our sleeves up. We are not getting our hands dirty. And we are saying we're allowing a third party to make the decision. Well, we have a problem regardless of what that decision is. Because you are going to have somebody that's upset. And what is TriMet management going to do? Hey, we don't agree with the ruling. I'm sorry, taxpayers. That's not acceptable. And unfortunately, I think we have been characterized as we are unwilling to meet. We are unwilling to use these issues. Why, throughout the history of time, we were able to do that? Why did Fred Hansen increase the wages when that contract expired? Why, in a labor relations meeting, did Fred Hansen ask me to withhold those wage increases for the cost of living raise in 2010? Because he knew he had a duty, and has for a very long time. Fred's not here anymore. Neil, unfortunately, is the bearer of the bad news and is stuck with this. However, he has a great opportunity with those rose-colored glasses and to roll up his sleeves. And Neil and I had a brief conversation yesterday. Unfortunately, it was more about pancakes and less about settling a contract. And I said I'd be happy to meet with you and settle the contract. No, we won't be able to discuss that. Why? Why would we not be able to discuss that? Because somehow attorneys have taken over this. I do not bring an attorney into any negotiations I go into. And at the end of the day, we can make sure that the proper legal requirements are done. But when you roll up your sleeves to try to solve an issue, you need to have the players in the room. And unfortunately, the players seem to be outside of the room. And we get a different decision every time. That's unacceptable, and it is not doing all of us good justice. We are proud, hard-working members of this community. And we put forward binding arbitration so we would not be in these issues right now. But unfortunately, at the last hour, somebody from TriMet has gotten a ruling from another attorney, which, by the way, is settled in the other two areas. Same attorney. Both of those have settled. One's about to settle and the other one did settle. So, at the end of the day, I again ask all of you, help me. Sit us down at the table. Let's resolve this issue. Because I'm telling you, if you think that the two unfair labor practices, remember, we didn't even talk today about the actual issue of going to arbitration. We only talked about the two unfair labor practices. Those ultimately, I believe, will get settled prior to going to arbitration. That may not happen. But that still doesn't solve our problem. And you're going to end up having a decision that potentially can create even more problems for you. And I'll end my conversation with, how many times have I came here? How many times have I said, we do not have a labor relations director? We have nobody who is responsible or has the authority to meet with the union. That is unacceptable. And I appreciate you giving me the time today and meeting in front. Because I can tell you, from the last times we've met, I have felt, and our membership has felt, like second-hand citizens, and with the inability to have a conversation with you guys. And we know throughout our 20-plus contracts that we actually can make it work. We actually can create higher deductibles, co-insurance, variable spending accounts, all of those areas that can help lower the premium, which ultimately saves you money. The question then comes down to, what do we do with the savings? Just like you brought up, Steve, earlier, looking into the future. Well, we're not putting enough emphasis on the future. So as we close and we start talking about getting ready for employee appreciation, I got to tell you, most of my members are saying, thanks, but hold off on the sugar cookie. I just as soon have a collective bargaining agreement. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'll answer any questions you may have.
Sticking to the 10 minutes, too, that's great. And I know that the board would love to see a resolution to the issues. And I hope that one day we have better labor relations.
Let's make the day tomorrow, Rick. I'll clear my schedule. Maybe you can come out. Maybe we bring a Tom Walsh that we felt so highly about has come in as a safety consultant. Maybe we bring him into the room with Neil and me and see if we can get it figured out. I'm willing to meet. I hope you guys understand that.
Okay.
Thank you.